Ninja Gaiden Ragebound feels like a natural addition to the recent wave of classic revivals, right alongside the return of Contra, Metal Slug, and other retro heavyweights getting some modern love and attention. I was never particularly into the Ninja Gaiden series growing up. While I did play a few of them, the originals felt more frustrating than fun, and the handheld version I did play was probably the only one that ever caught my eye. I ended up liking how Ragebound turned out. But that's no surprise when it comes to a publisher like Dotemu or a developer like the Game Kitchen, who tend to hit the mark when it comes to platformers that are challenging and offer a lot of good gameplay elements. Since I don't know much about the Ninja Gaiden series or its past storylines, we will focus strictly on what Ragebound is all about. You play as Kenji, a shinobi of the Hayabusa clan, trained under the legendary Ryu Hayabusa. Ryu isn't the main protagonist this time. He steps into more of a mentor role, while the story follows Kenji's journey alongside Kuromi of the Spider Clan, as they both become intertwined in the dealings of Hell and the corruption of the United States of America. As you progress through each stage, more of the story unfolds bit by bit, and I have to say that they went above and beyond with how it's presented. Short, animated pixel art cutscenes bring key moments and the boss battles to life, especially with the later scenes showcasing Kenji and Kuromi working together. It's a surprisingly simple narrative, but the presentation carries it well. I feel like when you hear the name Ninja Gaiden, it's just natural to expect a brutal challenge and a good dose of mental fatigue that the series is infamous for. Surprisingly though, Ragebound isn't that difficult, at least not on your first run. The base game takes around 5 hours to finish, and the real challenge only kicks in after that, when hard mode and the optional modifiers become available through the Muramasa shop with unlocks. If I had to point out what exactly is difficult, it would have to be the stages where you play as Komori. Her kunai-based 4-directional control scheme during the motorcycle segments feel awkward and really slows down the pacing. Then there is a small issue with the hitboxes. You've got to get a real feel for the spacing, which takes time, and the enemies can still hit you from just outside where you think you're safe to apply a jump counter. Platforming has its own problems too. You'll often leap to your death instead of grabbing onto the ledges you clearly should have. This might have something to do with using analog and not using the D-pad, but I do have pretty big hands, so using analog is what doesn't destroy my thumbs. Once you do get hit, recovering mid-combat throws off your rhythm and makes everything feel a little bit clunkier, but that's normally what you would expect. I guess the easiest way to explain this would be to anybody who grew up with arcade games. Ragebound carries that same old school type of difficulty. It is designed to make you fail a few times. The secret demon realm paths really highlight this. They either throw enemies your way or toss in awkward platforming sections. More specifically, when an enemy is sent towards you when you're making an aerial jump or trying to leap to a new platform. When you miss a ledge you should have grabbed, it feels more frustrating than fair. Perhaps it needed a little bit more polish. It's not bad, but these were the only moments that got me feeling frustrated. You will notice right away that Ragebound has a phenomenal soundtrack. It is an absolute banger, and there's no doubt about that. Despite the platforming issues, the gameplay itself is solid. There were no crashes or bugs, and the whole experience feels rather polished. That's exactly how any game should be at release, when it's made to honor the fans of a classic series. The game nails that sick retro vibe that you love, but it also mixes it with Ragebound's unique art style and modern visual cues. This blend gives it a fresh, contemporary feel that's likely to win over even the most skeptical gamers. Those who usually only care about the flashy graphics that burn out their retinas. The balance of gameplay and the visuals were pleasant, but not too overwhelming. I have read some reviews about the game previously complaining that it doesn't feel like a true Ninja Gaiden game because it has too many mechanics. As I mentioned earlier, you are going to be playing as Kenji, but at one point, you're forced into a life or death situation where you have to merge with Komori. After merging with her, you get a mix of both Kenji's basic sword attacks and powers alongside Komori's ranged kunai abilities. You also gain the power to move through artifacts and enter the demon world, which helps Kenji navigate the real world. I can't say it's really that complex. You have the blue rage-bound enemies and the pink ones, and you gain their powers to gain empowered auto attacks that you simply use with the corresponding character skills. There's nothing too difficult or complicated about it. That is, unless you are trying to go for the high scores for each stage. In that case, it can be when you're trying to go for a S++ ranking with a challenge like Do Not Take Any Damage. Once again, the gameplay itself is not hard. Most of the bosses follow the same general pattern. Charge up your blade or kunai, slam them into a wall, deal damage, back off, and repeat while bouncing around and avoiding damage. The system works, it's just not groundbreaking. If you're coming into Ragebound expecting an insanely difficult and frustrating experience with dozens of hours of gameplay, that's only going to happen if you are somebody who likes to chase the stage challenges. And of course, unlock hard mode. That's where the real test of skill kicks in, with modern mechanics and modifiers giving it some extra bite. But for most players, I feel like they would get the base experience and then likely move on after the initial 5 or 6 hours on normal mode. It's a solid take on the classic formula. The game could very well become a staple in speedrun categories, with quick stages that do not take much of your time, clocking under 20 minutes. There is a good amount of content to master, and overall it is a well-executed and enjoyable game. However, when it comes to the pricing, I would have to say that it barely justifies the $30 price tag. I personally enjoy the story and its presentation, but realistically, a 30% discount would probably hit the sweet spot for most players based on the amount of content that you will be getting here. This is because I don't feel like the challenge is worth the effort for a few extra achievements to add on more time. There are a bunch of hidden stages alongside the base game, so for people who are really into the series or into nostalgia-driven modern games, I can see how this would resonate more with them than somebody who is new to the series. Compared to something like Contra, Operation Kaluga, it is definitely the more affordable option. A lot of people just cannot justify spending over $25 on a short game that they wish they could spend more time on, and that is a real consideration. Then you see these people compare it to some 2017 release that offers way more content for the exact same price or even less on sale, which isn't a fair comparison, but it's what people do. Still, that's kind of besides the point. Not everybody has the same budget or priorities when it comes to gaming. A lot of people want to spend less and get more rather than spend more and get less. If you're somebody who is still unsure with this kind of investment, I will be giving away 4 copies of Ragebound. You can find the giveaway details in the description below. Until then, I hope you enjoy the game as much as I did.